4 million human embryos are growing in wombs across the planet right now. Every single one of them, without exception, is busy building a tail. This is not a metaphor or a poetic observation. They are constructing a complex appendage with a distinct vascular system, nerve endings, and a series of vertebrae, perfectly designed for grasping, balancing, and steering. Your own development followed this exact blueprint. Mine did too. Every human being who has ever walked the earth started their journey in the dark, constructing the architecture of a primate that hadn't quite realized it was supposed to be a human yet. Think about the sheer weight of that biological ghost. In the earliest weeks of gestation, before the hands properly split and the face finishes knitting itself together, the human embryo maps out a pathway that echoes 50 million years of arboreal history. It builds a structure meant for life high above the forest floor. It lays down cellular tracks for a tool that you will never get to use. But then, the kill switch is thrown. The blueprint is scrubbed. The construction project is halted. The material is reclaimed, and the tail vanishes. You were born different, human, tailless, upright, because your ancestors were forced to choose. We are going to open the file on the design flaw that made us who we are and examine the dark, biological price we are still paying for that choice. If you want to stay on the case, subscribe. We open one investigation into human behavior and ancient instincts every week. For millions of years, the tail was the master controller of the primate body. It was not an accessory. It was the difference between life and death in the canopy. It was a counterweight, a grip, a rudder. It was a sensory tool that allowed our ancestors to move through the trees with a level of precision that we can barely imagine today. Picture an ancient world where a single miscalculation meant a fatal drop onto a floor crawling with predators. The tail was the safety net that caught them, twisted them, and righted them midair. Then, 25 million years ago, a common ancestor of the apes made a mistake, or perhaps a tactical retreat. A tiny segment of genetic trash, a jumping gene, a rogue piece of transposable DNA known as an ALU element slipped into the TBXT sequence of our DNA. It wasn't a mutation that gave us super strength or sharper teeth or larger brains. It was an insertion that triggered a malfunction. It didn't just shorten the tail, it effectively deleted the entire design protocol. We call the remnant the coccyx today. You know it as that single, useless bone that ruins your week when you fall on the ice. But forensic evolution sees something else entirely. It sees a ghost limb. It sees an unfinished construction project. An entire branch of the primate family tree looked at the most useful tool in their arsenal and decided to burn the blueprints. Why? Because the environment demanded a new way of moving. And the tail was no longer an asset. It was a drag. As the climate shifted and the dense canopies began to break apart into fragmented open woodlands, the heavy, balanced counterweight became a liability on the ground. To survive the transition from the trees to the terrestrial floor, our lineage had to radically alter its biomechanics. Drop a comment, did you know you were building a tail in the womb? I read them all, and your feedback shapes the next file. Here is where the official story cracks. We tell ourselves this was an upgrade. We tell ourselves that we survived, we walked upright, we built civilizations. We look at our towering skyscrapers, our written languages, and our complex technologies, and we assume evolution was marching deliberately toward us, polishing our design like an artisan perfecting a masterpiece. But the genetic scar we are talking about didn't come clean. When modern researchers engineered this very same mutation into lab subjects to understand our own biology, they didn't just get tailless bodies. They got neural tube defects, they got catastrophic spinal malformations. The very same category of developmental failures, like spina bifida, that still haunt human pregnancies to this day. The genetic insertion that stripped away our tail did not come with a safety guarantee. It was messy, violent, and deeply risky. This is the forensic truth. Evolution isn't an engineer refining a machine. It is a triage doctor at an apocalypse. Our ancestors traded the long-term lingering risk of a crippled spine and severe developmental failure for the immediate mobility to swing below branches and eventually walk on two legs. We are the descendants of the ones who made the trade, and we are still carrying the biological debt. The tail was deleted, but the risk was baked into the code. Every medical complication involving our spinal column, every structural vulnerability in our lower backs is a direct installment payment on a loan our ancestors took out 25 million years ago. Every time we look at our own anatomy, we are looking at a system built on desperation. We are looking at a history of a species that amputated its own nature to survive. We did not transcend our primate roots. We were forced to abandon them under duress. Think of the human spine. It is an engineering compromise of the highest order. We took a column designed to act like a horizontal suspension bridge, supported equally at both ends, and we forced it upright into a vertical tower. The result? Chronic back pain, slipped discs, and structural fatigue that plagues nearly every human adult as they age. We carry the structural legacy of quadrupeds pretending to be bipeds, balancing on hips that were hastily redesigned in the middle of evolutionary history. You are not a calm animal living in safety. You are a survival machine built by a series of desperate trades, 25 million years in the making. Your tailbone is not just a remnant. It is a forensic clue to a moment where an entire lineage of primates stared down a dead end and chose to pay a permanent, heavy price just to keep moving forward. They traded their balance, their agility, and the structural integrity of their spines for a chance at a different future. We were here. We endured. And because they made that trade, you are here to question it. You are sitting here today, reading these words, breathing with lungs shaped by ancient desperation, standing on a skeletal framework built on a compromise. If this file got under your skin, there's another one waiting in the evidence room. Stay on the case. The investigation continues. If this changed how you see your own body, the next file will too. Subscribe.